What is up, Titans Nation? We are live with breaking news, aka the emergency meeting. Welcome into the SeatGeek Studios. I'm your host, Lee Hillisan. First off, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors over at SeatGeek. You can use our code 615podcast. That is 615 PODCAST at checkout for $20 off your first order of $50 or more on SeatGeek.com or on the SeatGeek app. So we got news on Tuesday afternoon that the Titans fired GM Rand Carthon. But before we dive into that, let's go and bring one of the three members of this show, Jay Murph. What's up, Jay Murph?
What's up, Lee? How you doing, man?
Let's just say it's been a crazy week for Titans fans.
Oh, absolutely.
We fire Rand Carthon. We then get word yesterday that Mike Keith is packing his bags and heading to Knoxville.
Congratulations to Mike Keith.
It's a job I know that he has wanted for a long time.
Yep.
But we'll give honor where honor's due at the end of this show. Because you cannot talk about Titans football without talking about Mike Keith.
Or about to have to start.
Who's been a focal point of this franchise for 27 years. But Titans fire Rand Carthon. The question is, who's the next GM? But not only did the Titans fire Rand Carthon, they fired Vice President of Team Operations Brent Akers, Vice President of Football Technology Anthony Pastrina, Assistant GM Anthony Robinson, and Senior Director of Security John Albertson. To remind you, Pastrina has been with this team since 1997 when they were playing in Memphis. Akers came in 1998. But Anthony Robinson was hired along with Chad Brinker by Rand Carthon in 2023. But we know that Amy's not leading this charge. Chad Brinker is. And Josh, what's your opinion on Chad Brinker leading the charge on this?
It depends on the reasons why she's doing it. Is she doing it because she doesn't know football? Or is she doing it because she's stepping away because she thinks she's done a poor job? Like, I don't understand why. Carthon hired Brinker, right?
Brinker came in 2023, yeah.
He was hired around the same. I just don't know, man. And then with all the sleazy things that came out, people talking about how his work ethic was
lazy.
But after he got fired, because you guys didn't have the balls to say it before he got fired.
So everybody's asking, who is Chad Brinker? Let's dive into his background to give you a little bit more of an idea. So he's from Ohio. He played college at the University of Ohio. He coached at Westerview Central High School. I guess that's in Ohio also.
And won the WWE Championship 3 or 4 times.
Yes. But then he got into the league as an executive in 2009 in Green Bay, where he started off as a scouting intern in 2009. Scouting assistant 2010 to 2011. 2012 to 2017, pro scout for Green Bay. 2018 to 2020, assistant director of pro scouting, and he was also in charge of the salary cap. 2021 to 2022, personnel and football administration executive. 2023, he came into the Titans as the assistant GM.
Do you remember why we hired him? Because I do.
Now, right off the top of my head.
He was the guy we brought in from Green Bay because he had developed a system that allowed to understand injuries better. Because we were coming fresh off of those 2 seasons where we had record high injuries.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? So
that's ridiculous.
Really, his only claim to fame, and some people don't realize this, but the Packers don't have like a general GM structure like a normal team does. They actually have a CEO in charge of their team. We seem to be floating more towards the Toronto Raptors management structure. The more we get into this and the more we learn about it, it's odd.
2024 president of football operations, and now he's president of football operations and a de facto general manager.
Pretty much.
So he's basically calling the shots now.
Well, and the funny thing about that is the NFL actually investigated this because of how weird it sounded to all of us. And they said that it's fine that we're actually hiring what meets the criteria of a GM. So I don't know what that means, but oh yeah.
Tell me why this man looks like Brock Lesnar.
He looks just like Brock Lesnar.
Or as Paul Heyman says, Brock Lesnar.
Without the steroids, for sure.
But the GM candidates, of course, the Titans have started GM interviews already. They did Reggie McKenzie today. Dimitrioff today, the former GM of Atlanta. Let me go ahead and pull that tweet up and run through all the interviews that have happened. This is from Teron Davenport. Remaining Titans GM interviews via Zoom for today include Thomas Dimitroff, a former GM of Atlanta.
So is that the guy who drafted Matt Ryan and Julio Jones?
Yes.
Yeah, then I definitely want to know what he has to say for sure.
John Spytek from Tampa Bay.
I've heard good things about him as well.
On Saturday, so tomorrow, Matt Berry from Seattle, Ed Dodds from Indianapolis, Terrence Gray from Buffalo, and Catherine Hickman from Cleveland.
I don't know anything about Dodds or Gray, but everybody else I've heard really good things about.
And then on Sunday, Mike Borgonzi and Ian Cunningham.
Chicago, the people I know in Chicago really like Ian Cunningham. And he finished as one of our top candidates when we went to hire rank Carthon last cycle.
So someone asked TD, does the Rooney rule not apply to the GM as well? Teron Davenport came back and said Reggie McKenzie, Ian Cunningham, Catherine Hickman, and Terrence Gray all satisfy that requirement. Because they're all minority. Because, of course, Catherine Hickman is a female. And then you have three African-American candidates.
How do you feel about Reggie McKenzie?
So we were going through his track record when it came to drafting. We could only name 4 of those guys.
I think he had seven drafts. But, I mean, we didn't look at all the drafts in depth.
But he did draft Arden Key, so.
He did draft Arden Key in the 3rd round. That is true. I don't know. I like Reggie McKenzie when he was the GM of the Raiders. I don't.
And he's also a Tennessee boy. He's also a Tennessee boy, so it makes sense.
He is. I mean, and his agents put out there that he's the top, one.
And that was from Diana Rossini, actually.
Yeah, whatever. I wouldn't mind Reggie McKenzie in this type of management structure that they seem to have, because again, I don't trust Al Davis, so I don't know how much input Al Davis actually put into any of those drafts. But
so the thing that I would bring up, and they talked about it yesterday. It was either it's probably more like Wednesday. If you're a GM candidate and you're coming in for an interview, the first question I'm asking is, how much power will I have?
You meet the
Because
NFL's criteria for a GM. That's
because
probably what my answer would be.
apparently Chad Brinker's calling all the shots as the GM. As an assistant GM, he would have all the power of a GM. So basically, your GM would have no power. So
Well,
the thing I'm thinking is, what would make this? What would make sense of having a GM if he's not having the GM power?
he is the president of football operations. He's not the GM, Chad Brinker.
Well, he's the de facto GM.
Well, we assume that because reports have come out, but we don't really know, and I think that's part of the reason why we have to rely on these reports. You know, that's why the NFL investigated.
But the list of candidates, assistant GM from Kansas City, Mike Borgonzi. Assistant GM and VP of football operations, Catherine Hickman from Cleveland. Director of player personnel, Terrence Gray. Senior personnel executive, Reggie McKenzie. You have Thomas Dimitrioff, former GM of Atlanta.
Yep.
Matt Berry, director of player personnel from Seattle.
He's been a hot man for years.
And Indy's assistant GM, Ed Dodds.
I don't want anything to do with Indy.
Exactly.
I don't want anything to do with Indy. Like that situation refuses to change. They're on the other end of the spectrum when it comes to
had 6 names. You had 6 names announced within a 12-hour period. And the most recent name was Matt Berry.
Well, they've been wanting to fire Carthon since December. They've been talking about this. So I'm sure they had a whole list lined up.
But the way I would rank them, number 1, Borgonzi out of Kansas City. The reason why, and I'd had this discussion with Justin Mello. Mike Borgonzi is in a franchise that has drafted very well as of late. They have developed their players very well. And those players they have drafted and developed, they have found a way to retain. Same thing with Buffalo. Buffalo has drafted okay. They haven't drafted great. But they have found a way to develop talent. Thomas Dimitrioff, he drafted Matt Ryan. He drafted Julio Jones. He drafted, I think, Roddy White.
No, he was there a while then.
He drafted high-level talent. Reggie McKenzie drafted Arden Key. I think he also drafted, you said, Mario Edwards.
Yeah, Mario Edwards Jr.
And Amari Cooper.
Yeah, Amari Cooper. Yeah. High picks, though.
Yeah. Ed Dodds, don't know. Catherine Hickman, I have no idea. And Matt Berry, I have no idea.
So Dimitrioff was GM from 2008 until 2020.
So
Matt Ryan was the 2008, if I recall.
The dude was in the NFL for what felt like years.
Matt Ryan, he was in there for forever, man. He should have really walked away with a lot more than what he left with.
But Amy Adams shrunk.
Yeah, he drafted. So Dimitrioff's first pick was Matt Ryan.
Okay,
that lines up, unless they did something stupid like fire the GM after the draft or something.
But since she's taken full control, she has now hired 3 GMs, even though she has no say in the new GM.
Suppose
she's still the owner. She's still the owner. So she's hypothetically hired 3 GMs, and she's also hired 3 head coaches,
not including the head coach she fired and the GM she fired. That she inherited.
The crazy thing is, if you look, they fired J-Rob. Get Rand Carthon. Actually, no. Here's how it all started. You fired Malarkey after hiring J-Rob. Like a year or two, like one season after.
Yeah, you had you fired Wiz mid-season, and then you had Malarkey as the interim, and then you hired the coach, and then you hired the GM.
Yeah,
which was a big deal because then Malarkey got canned, and then J-Rob turned around and went and got one of his boys from the Patriot system.
Vrabel.
Yeah, we were trying to be.
And then they were here until last season. Actually,
yeah.
J-Rob was the season before. Then you hire Rand. Then you fire Vrabel. Then you hire Callahan. Then you go on and fire Rand again.
Fire you another GM. Who are you gonna bring in? Who's the next guy you're gonna fire? Callahan gonna get one full season, or is he gonna get the Wiz treatment?
Well, the question is, if I'm a GM, does my job security rely on the head coach?
It depends on your responsibility and the structure of your front office.
Because it seems like the last two GMs we have fired, their job came under scrutiny because of a losing season.
I think that they looked at those seasons and attributed them to a lack of talent on the roster, and specifically the back end. We had no depth with Rand Carthon. When J-Rob was here,
This is a great question. Are the Titans wanting to bring in a GM sooner than later, or is once they get through the list of potential candidates, or is it if they already know the one?
They're doing
and just want him to interview. And just wait for him to interview.
Here. They're it looks like they are literally trying to interview everybody that they can. They're trying to get at least one person from each system so they can learn how to be better. This is probably going to be a long process. They're not going to come in on Wednesday and say they hired Reggie McKenzie. It's not going to happen.
They don't want to take long because at the end of this month and beginning of February, you have the Senior Bowl.
That's just okay.
And the GM and the whole staff is there, scouting players. Then you have the combine at the end of February. So I think you want to have your new GM in place sooner rather than later. I think within the next week and a half. I'm going to say within the next 10 days. Within the next 10 to 12 days.
I don't think it matters. I think you got Chad Brinker in place and you put him in charge of the search for a reason. Your scouting department didn't get ripped apart. You ripped apart your security team. You didn't do anything for your scouting department or most of the people who are making evaluations. The only person not there right now is your GM.
And I said, because I know we're going through this very fast, but we said we wanted to end giving honor where honor's due to the most tenured member of this organization since the very beginning. This is an interesting take before we dive into Mike Keith. Tennessee is going to find it the prospect GM is willing to work with Callahan before hiring. That's what we thought. That's what we thought Ram was.
I think that if you cared if the GM and the head coach got along, you would have fired the coach too.
Well, everybody was saying, let's go back to the whole Vrabel thing. Vrabel was saying that Rand was in over his head, basically. And everybody thought he was crazy. That's why Vrabel was fired. And I'm guessing Callahan came in and said the same thing. And then Rand was fired. Is that what you're thinking? Or do you agree with that?
Me? I mean, I've never heard him be called crazy by anybody. I've heard lack of work ethic, and I've heard not in over their head. I don't know, man.
They probably want to start the rebuild ASAP or minor rebuild. I think they're going full rebuild.
We're in the midst of it. The rebuild started last year. God, I hope we're not starting the rebuild now. We're a year late. We're 2 years late.
But as I said, we want to give honor where honor is due. To the most tenured member of this organization, 27 years ago, 26, almost 27 years ago, Mike Keith was hired as the voice of the Tennessee Titans. We got word yesterday that after 26, 27 years with this organization, Mike Keith is heading east to the University of Tennessee to be the voice of the Tennessee Volunteers, football and basketball. I told Josh that it's going to be weird listening to Titans games.
Yeah,
and not hearing Mike Keith. But let's take
before you do that. I mean, Mike Keith was part of the reason I fell in love with the Titans. I would wear my headphones even at the games. I mean, you go to the games as a kid and you can't see anything unless you have binoculars. If you're like my parents, we couldn't afford to be down low, but headphones.
You would have your headphones and listen to Mike
at the game and on the bus ride to and from. I mean, you're listening to Mike Keith. Mike Keith is the voice. He was the ambassador. He was the one who put the Titans on the map, basically. I mean, outside of Steve McNair and Eddie George. When you hear him, his play calling is iconic. I mean, you can point out a few plays. The young maestro calls of Marcus Mariota for more recently. I mean, the Air McNair calls, the Music City Miracle, the 60-yard field goal. I mean, all those.
The 99-yard touchdown run by Derek.
Yeah, we're gonna miss you, man. I'm pretty bummed. I hate every Volunteer fan that walks the face of the earth right now
because they get what we had.
Yep. And he was so. I mean, we literally, as far as like, and it doesn't even matter to most of the Titans because none of them have been here longer than 12 months. But he let the last game he called be completely irrelevant. The man spent most of the time talking about draft order.
The first game that Mike ever called was at Cincinnati in 1998, which the Titans won. So he started calling the Titans games with a win, and he ended with a loss.
The terrible send-off for a Titans legend. Then Amy Adams-Strunk, to her credit, said that he's going to be immediately inducted into the team's Ring of Honor. So,
which he should.
He should. Needs a statue out front.
He needs a statue outside of the new stadium.
Yes, he does.
Right as you're walking in the door, there needs to be a big Mike Keith statue right there.
Yep, you're right.
With on the very bottom, you see nothing but sack. But we're going to take 2 minutes and listen to some of the greatest calls by the voice of the Tennessee Titans, Mike Keith.
McNair throws into the end zone. Caught! White Jackson! Big Jeff! 1, 2, 3. Henry bounces it outside. 5, 10, 15. Stiff arm. 20, 25, 30, 40. From the 35, first and 10. McNair goes toss sweep. George coming left. Then he cuts it up. 30, 25, 20. Yes. 15, 10, 5. In zone. Eddie George, 35 yards to Pater, 99 yards! The longest run in franchise history! Derrick Henry, blocked! It's blocked by Kalu! Joshua Kalu! His kick hits the upright and goes through! Yes! 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 Great job, Sloman! Do the Titans have a miracle left in them? In what has been a magical season to this point. If they do, they need it now. Christie kicks it high and short. Going to be fielded by Lorenzo Neal at the 25. Pitches it back to Wycheck. He throws it across the field to Dyson.
He's got something.
30,
He's got
40,
something.
50,
He's got it.
40,
He's got it.
20, 10.
He's got it.
End zone. Touchdown Titans. There are no flags on the field. It's a miracle. Tennessee has pulled a miracle. Yes! Oh, hell yes!
Oh, my goodness. Harold Landry.
Bennett did it again. McNair on 4th and 10 shows why he's the man. Brady in the end zone. Takes the snap. Looks. Fires. Pass batted up in the air. Intercepted and returned for a touchdown. Titans. Logan Ryan as the Titans get it done again.
There's so many iconic moments. We go to New England, knock off Tom Brady and the Patriots. One of the big memories that I know for Mike was being able to call a Super Bowl. Too bad he didn't get to do it again.
Good luck, Mike. Happy for you, man.
And one of my favorite memories of Mike, of course, he was a little pod about 2 years ago, just before we played that Monday night game against Buffalo, where we stonewalled Josh Allen on 4th and goal. And I had the opportunity to meet Mike at training camp this last year, which was probably one of the coolest highlights I could say I've actually gotten to do. But Mike will be missed by the Titans faithful.
Yep.
So, Mike, good luck in Knoxville. And from me and all the Titans fans around the world, thank you. Well, Josh, I told you we did not want to take long on this show.
No.
But Titans fans, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Stay classy and tighten up.
Tighten up! Let's get tightened up! Tightened up!